is the African Boy, and this is basically the first time we're recording anything on the channel. Wow. The reason why we chose this filter is that in a way we don't want to be seen, even though it sounds stupid, but there will be videos that we will be uploading, and this is basically the first chapter of the African story, and basically what the channel is about is it's about talking about African lives. It's exposing, the life we live under in Africa, and it's also speaking about ways to change the African narrative that is being portrayed by many years by people that are not African. Often 90% of the people that portray our stories are people from out there. And as an African child, I feel that it's my time to tell my African story and how we in Africa are actually not so broke. We are not broke. We actually, I wouldn't say we are well off than the Europeans and those superpowers that are perceived by many, but we are a continent of love and unity and all that. But as an African child, the intention of this channel is basically to educate, give out demographic ways and political ways going to change how our leaders rule our state, and also to change the narrative within and amongst our own population to stop turning against each other, because until Africa can stop having war with its own, that's the only time the world can really listen to us. Because the reason why we have the West constantly coming to Africa looking to give us money to fund our ill-equipped states, it is because we, as Africans, we often fight with amongst each other until we can stop that fight against each other as African kids and say, you know what, that's my sister, that's my African brother. And I know many of us who speak the same way that I'm speaking, but the truth is, as soon as you go and you're with your buddies and your family members, you go out and you fight your own battles, and you're like, I won't let another African, clanmate of mine suffer at my watch. And then all of a sudden, we're back at this giant clan war. As Africans, we need to let God down. Yes, we are all African, but we all belong to different houses and clans and kingdoms and chiefdoms. We need to, as African children, unify that and say, you know what, yes, I'm from, the Xhosa clan, yes, I'm from the Zulu clan, yes, I'm from the Ndebele, Swati, Shangani, Tswana, Sotho, Pedi, Ing. Yes, I'm from this different clan, but yes, I'm a Swahili, Malawian, I'm from the Ashanti, Nigerian, all these African clans that we have. Yes, I'm from that African house and that clan, but in the end, it shouldn't be about what clan I come from. It should be about us building a better future for the next 5-year-old boy, next 5-year-old girl to look and say, you know what, my forefathers or my father's father, my brother's brother, whatsoever, they've built an African state where I can dream as an African child and not want to work towards a certain goal where my intention is to leave Africa. To be honest with you, I want to raise to the forefront the story about Hush Puppy. Many of you know who Hush Puppy is. Hush Puppy is, might as well say it is, he's renowned as a scam artist. But if you ask yourself what has led to Mr. Puppy being a scam artist, he has become that because he's an African child. He woke up and he looked around his Nigeria and he saw there was no hope. And many of us as youth in Africa, we are not listened for by the leaders in states and the leaders of hierarchy in society in general. Many youth of us have to fight. As youth, you have to go through the most detrimental time before you get there to the top. And Mr. Hush Puppy took the easy way of life. He decided, I'm going to be a scam artist. I'm going to live off other people's hard work, taking the money and living out of them. But this is where Mr. Hush Puppy got it wrong. He did it to a point where it became an addiction. And I won't blame him, because every time as an African kid, you sit back and you look and you're like, Africa is a wonderful continent, but there's no opportunities. Why is that so? The opportunity is being suppressed by our African leaders being autocratic, our African leaders being capitalist, our African leaders looking to gain for personal gains instead of gaining for the unification of its people. And until our leaders can stop looking at their personal gains and their personal incomes and start saying, I'm a president, I'm looking out for my people, until we can have more presidents like your Nana from Ghana and your Kagame from Uganda and your Ramaphosa from South Africa, and the list goes on of many great leaders within the African continent who are trying their utmost best to change the current situations their states are under. The more, if we can have more of those, more than anything, trust me when I say the African continent will be a bright place. It will be the epicenter that it deserves to be. Many people globally, they don't know Africa. They look at us as the poorest economy, the poorest people globally. But guess what? Let me tell you a secret, my friends. Before there was any library, before there was any proper schooling buildings outside there, Timbuktu is the epitome of African excellence, global excellence. The knowledge that Africa possesses is so astronomical that many out there look at us as Africans and say, and they are astonished even to this day. People are astonished to see a black man being so smart and all that. But to be honest with you, the history of Africa is as follows. In fact, the history of the globe, the very first museum, the very first scholars and all that, they all came to Africa to study. The Arabs will tell you, I studied my varsity in Africa. The Chinese will tell you, the people that were perceived as scholars of the ancient texts, I came to Africa to study my knowledge. African kings and leaders, they'll tell you, I studied in Africa. Africa's system of schooling system, the 1 hour system, before we were infused and we fell in love with the European scholars system, the African schooling system was always simple. It was not about, I have to get a PhD, I have to get a doctorate, I have to get this, that. It was about teaching the African child ancient stories that were passed on to the next generation. It was about teaching the African child the knowledge of how to live a simple life in the African continent. African school system was always about the benefiting of the African first. It was always easier because we were being taught in a nice way where we could understand. But now the system has changed to a point where now we are learning English as the number 1 language so that we can communicate with other people out there. Back in ancient time, Africa used to be a continent where we basically, we had our own clans, but if you were an African back in the time, you could go to any clan and you would blend in effortlessly. Today, I can't go to some other place randomly. Yes, I can, but I will feel that anxiety of neglection by that particular place I go to. And why is that for so? That is for so because we as Africans have created these barriers that are imposed by us, by the fellow colonizers of this continent, until we can decolonize our minds. People think colonizing is about just taking a mass of land and putting in a white man and doing what he or she wants. But colonizing starts with the mind. If you colonize my state of thought, you colonize my whole body. You colonize me without me having it to speak about you colonizing my assets. You've already captured me by having my mind. But for as long as I, as an African child, can say decolonization of the mind, that will lead to us creating better systems for us as African kids. And we as African kids can never do that unless we unify and come together and say, we are Africans. We are not Malawians. We are not this. We are not that. We are not that. We are Africans. We will fight together. Go to war together. I mean, there's so much more I can talk about, but it's already 11 minutes into the video, and this is just an introduction video of what the channel is about. We're using this filter because, we are still new to this thing. We don't want to be exposed yet, as we are trying to launch this channel. And catch you in the next episode. The next episode, I assure you guys, it will be much improved. There will be no filters, obviously, and there will be proper topics that will be set for our next episode. In the next episode, our next episode will be based on the topic of the African trade bloc. Let us start with the current situation. Our next topic will be about the African trade bloc that has just been concluded by our AU leaders. How Nana and Kigama are supporting this. And we will be touching on how, this is my views on how I see this trade bloc is going to be beneficial to us as Africans. Because at the end of the day, a trade agreement, we might think trade is about exchanging goods and economic flow and all that. Trade has got to do with more than that. In Africa, trade has always been there, but it's got a certain significance in Africa compared to trade as perceived in other states, in other continents rather, instead of states. So our next topic is about trade in Africa and how Africans trade. Ciao.